By the end of this presentation, I think you'll get to know a little bit more about me. But my confession to you is that the person who's standing in front of you today is very, very different from who she was a decade ago. And I thank God for that. Can you teach an old dog a new trick? Caesar Milan would tell you, definitely. And this pit bull is telling you, absolutely. It just really depends on how serious you are and committed you are in taking the necessary steps, if that's what you really want to do. 11 years ago, I did a lot of soul searching. A lot of internal battles was going on. And I just knew that there had to be more, that there was something bigger out there. And there was a lot of things that were not working in my life. And what wasn't working in my life was me. So in order for you to understand, get a better idea of who that person was, I need to take you back to 1999, when the world came to a very scary but exciting discovery. I was 37, 38 almost, old enough to know better, when I asked myself what I thought at the time was a pretty simple question. Is this really what life is all about? What was happening was that my inner voice, that little voice that speaks to you, wasn't speaking to me in a whisper anymore. It was screaming at me, and it was trying to get my attention. And actually, I thought at the time I was heading for a nervous breakdown. You see, on the outside, I was presenting the world with a facade. I was a big, fat faker. I was lying to myself, to my first husband, to family, to friends, and just to get through those years, and because of all the lies, I didn't even know what the truth was anymore. And I just knew that I couldn't continue to go on like that. So I basically just threw up the white flag and I said, I surrender. I give up. I don't know what to do anymore. I just knew that something, my purpose was out there, and it was for me to figure out who and what that was. I just knew that the next 40, 50 years couldn't be like this. So what do you have to do in order to find what that purpose is? Have you ever taken a good, hard look into yourself? In order to bring about change, you need to figure out where to start. And I needed to identify what it was in my life that wasn't working, what it was that was preventing me from not living the life of my dreams. And this is where I had the brainstorm idea that I was going to do my own self-analysis. Well, let me tell you, that was no picnic. Because I already established that I was a liar. But when I started looking at all the other things that was holding me back, oh my God, it scared the bejesus out of me. It was things like, I always had to be right. I always had to be in control. I could never show my fear. I could never show that I was unsure of where I was headed. I basically had to live a perfect life. When I started identifying the flaws, it became very evident what was holding me back from having that life that I wanted. Oh my God, it was me. I was having an Oprah, thank God for Oprah, an aha moment right there. And I said, you know what? If I got myself into this mess, it's up to me to get myself out of this mess. So basically, I decided to do a major do-over. I wanted a clean slate. But I also knew that I needed to do and go on this journey on my own. And I needed to push the guilt aside. And I said to myself, you know what? It's okay to want a different kind of life. It's okay that you don't want the same things that you did when you were 20 years old. What do you know when you were 20 years old? And people grow, we change, we evolve, and that's great. But don't resent the people that are not growing at the same rate that you are. Thank them for what they brought to your life, but realize that it's not your responsibility to change them. Change begins and ends with you. But the real indication for me came when I was looking in that mirror, and I was really looking hard at myself, and I saw most women's nightmare come to life. Oh my God, I was turning into my mother. Thank you for laughing. Well, the apple does not fall far from the tree. My mother lived a tortured life, and from the time that I was born, all she wanted to do was die. And she taught me that life was hard, it was cruel, it was bitter. And we learned from our role models. We learned how to treat people, how to get through a situation, what life is going to be all about. To be quite honest with you, I didn't like my mother when I was growing up, and I kept her at arm's length. But it's very funny, and it may sound ironic to you, today I'm grateful for the mother that I had. I got the mother that I was supposed to have. And for a lot of reasons. The main reason was that she taught me how not to live life. It was during that time that I was finally able to forgive and accept her for who she was. I knew that she was only doing the best she could with what she had, and that it wasn't my job to try to change her to be the mother that I wanted. No, I had the mother that I was supposed to have. The only choice and responsibility for me was to fix myself and leave the others. If they want to fix themselves, you got to do it yourself. Growing up, I was the youngest of 7 children, and my 3 older sisters are here right now from Toronto. Yay! Winnipeg is home, by the way. And at a very young age, I learned the art of observation. I watched what my brothers and sisters did to stay out of the wrath of Mom. And I still practice that art every day. For example, when I go out, I do something that I love to do. I call it a hobby. I love to people watch. Now, I'm not talking about, I don't stalk people. I don't do that. I just love to see how people interact, especially when it's in situations like long lineups, traffic jams, screaming children, rude retail staff, things like that, because I want to give you one piece of advice. When people show you how they act in certain situations or treat others, believe them the first time. I honed this craft of an observer, and this skill has served me so well in life because it makes me cautious of who I'm going to invite into my life. Who am I going to allow to be in my life? And over the years, as a young child, teenager, and adult, I learned a very valuable lesson by watching and being on guard with my mother. I observed what she did to keep any form of happiness out of her life. And I realized that my mother was a fantastic player at the blame game. Do you know someone that is a good expert at that game, pointing the finger? That's exactly what I became. I was doing exactly what she did. And because I was blaming everybody and everything for the way that my life turned out, because it definitely couldn't be me. Or could it? I tell you, the aha moments that were happening were like bullets at a battlefield being shot towards my way. And I am thankful that those bullets were aimed my way because they were life-changing, and they gave me a starting point of what I needed to work on to turn things around. So to set out to find my purpose, I knew that I needed to forgive myself, to forgive my mother, to forgive others. Forgiveness is a huge, huge thing. Stop beating myself up for the way my life was at that point. Forget about the mess. All I knew is that going forward, I did have the ability to change. I had to be honest with myself and with others. I could no longer live a life of lies. No more lies, no more masks, no more pretending. And I had to put the guilt aside for wanting a better life, which meant leaving others behind. And I gotta tell you, that was the hardest thing for me to do. It's like breaking any habit, a bad habit, like an alcoholic. If they don't want to drink anymore, they can't be around booze or their drinking buddies, because it's so easy to fall back into that kind of life. So I knew that I had to rid myself of all the negativity. If I was going to make a change, I was going to do it in a big way. Because that negativity was draining the energy from my soul. Now, speaking of soul, I knew that I had to try one more thing right at this pivotal moment in my life. I knew that I never honestly gave this part of my life any consideration before, and I knew it was lacking. And this really big thing was testing faith, testing to see if there really is a higher power. And I know that I'm not the only one. And there's that great debate out there, is there a higher power? I was about to bring huge changes into my life, and I already knew that I was going to do this solo. But I was going to ask someone, something for help. But because I was a trained skeptic growing up, not being a religious person, spirituality was a foreign thing to me. But I decided, why not? Why not try it? I decided to let go of all my preconceived ideas about this higher power and really test it. And not only was I going to test it, I was really going to go all the way and say, okay, you know what? You also say that all of us were born with a gift. And it's our responsibility to find what that gift is in our life. If I'm willing to make all of these changes, are you going to show me my gift? It's kind of like peeling back the layers of that onion to get to the core, to the center of who you really are. That's where I think that gift lies, is when we peel it all back. So I did what any normal, non-religious person did right at that moment. I looked up at the sky, because I think that's what you were supposed to do if you were going to have this conversation with that person, because I would have felt ridiculous falling down on my knees. And I just said, I'm willing to change. I'm tired of living the life that I'm living. I promise that I'm going to go forward being more honest, being more positive, being healthier, being happier, helping others. If I do this, will you show me what my path is for the remainder of my life? And if you do this, if you give me some sign, I will never question your existence ever again. Okay, so it's worth noting or mentioning at that moment, you better be careful what you ask for, because you might just get it. I've tested this theory about talking to that spirit when the lottery is really big. That Lotto Max is up to 56 million. I'm going, oh God, I need to win that. Yeah, sometimes when you're doing that, yeah, they don't hear you. It's when you are asking something that is deep in your soul and from your heart, and you're saying, I really need help, I really need guidance. Show me, just show me a sign. Right at that time, I thought it was ironic that that sign to me came in form of a human being that I knew from the moment I looked at him, that man was going to change my life. And that person was Malchuk.